You are an entrepreneur, a professional, a speaker, or a coach. And although you've come a long way, it's time for you to take it to the next level. We've got you. This is the Author to Authority podcast. We'll help you use authority and influencer marketing to build your business stronger and faster by publishing a book. You'll hear from guests that are thought leaders in sales, marketing, networking, communication, social media, promotion, and business leadership. Let's do it. This is the Author to Authority podcast. And now your host, the extraordinary word ninja, Thompson Pinder.
Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. I'm your host, Thompson Pinder. A couple weeks ago, I made a boo-boo and had not recorded an episode for the Author to Authority podcast, which I thought I had. In reality, I had misnumbered an episode, which caused a gap. During that process, I decided to pull a From the Vault episode with myself and my previous co-host and best friend of more than 30 years, Juanita, Wootton, Radko. And as I was going through some of our episodes, I realized there was such rich information in there. Information that, even though it was recorded a few years ago, is still good for you now and is going to help you to move your business forward. So I decided for the rest of June, I'm going to feature some of the best of Kim and Juanita's episodes talking about all things authority, marketing, and book publishing. Come July, we will be back to our normal guest episodes 3 times a week. So I hope you sit back and enjoy these Kim and Juanita From the Vault episodes. Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast, and I'm here today with the incredible, what's some delicious words I can come up with today to describe my wonderful, amazing co-host, Juanita Wootton Radko. I will think of some delicious ones for my next introduction.
Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Don't know what that means, but hey, it works. So the last time that Juanita and I were together, we started this conversation about how do you have sales conversations that lead into clients and customers. And I had given it the 5 points, which is, most of the conversation should be about listening, asking questions, providing value, body language, and a test close. Guess how many of them we got through the last time?
Hint, it's less than 5.
Hint, it's less than 3. Hint, it's less than 2.
1.5.
Yeah, so we really got into a focus on, listening. And there was about 3 main points that we covered. So first of all, listen to understand, not to respond. Listen because you truly care about the person, you want what's best for them, and listen to determine if you want to work with this person. So if you haven't already heard that, you can go back. Juanita's and mine's episodes are always the first and third Tuesday of the month. So just, go back to the previous episode and you can listen through that. It was huge, amazing discussion. So today we're going to start on point 2 and see how far we get. We'll see. This might turn into a 3 or 4-parter. We'll see what happens.
I believe in us, Kim. I didn't say what I believe us to do, but I believe in us.
I was going to say brief and succinct. That might be interesting. But point number 2, actually, just before we do that, Juanita, do you have any thoughts that you want to share just before we get into part 2, asking questions?
Let's jump in. I always have them as soon as, do you know what? I have ideas. As soon as you start talking, that's when I go, oh yeah, I want to say this. Why do you do that, brain? I don't know. I don't know.
So the second part of the sales process is asking questions. And, we talked about the listening part, but the asking questions is the other part. So if you're really going to help this person, you want to have a deep understanding of their problem. And, we were talking about when you owned a Husqvarna sewing machine shop. That was very wonderful and exciting. But you would ask questions. You actually interviewed your potential clients and customers to find out, really where they kind of fit in. So, maybe talk about that a little bit, Juanita. Like, what was that process like? Because you said that Husqvarna took you through a whole sales training to teach you how to sell these machines. Now, you got to understand that, Juanita sold sewing machines from what, $199, somewhere around there?
Even lower. And when I first started and the economy was a little different, we had some $99 sewing machines all the way up to when I closed the store, our top of the line was $15,000 sewing machines. So
those are two very different conversations.
Absolutely. And I think it's just as a side note, they are conversations of varying length too. Mm-hmm. There's not as many questions you need to ask if it's a $99 sale versus a $15,000 sale. You want to get comfy for that, that 15 grand.
And more than one conversation too.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of times the way I would upsell people was over a period of time because I was developing a relationship. One of the questions or three of the questions in my head, I always think BAT.
Okay.
Which was brand, age, and type. I'd ask about the brand of the sewing machine, how old the sewing machine was, and the type of sewing. I mentioned in the last podcast, like, what type of sewing do you like to do? But knowing the brand that the person was sewing on currently, they might say something like, oh, I inherited my grandmother's treadle sewing machine. And I was like, oh, those are gorgeous. They are so beautiful. But have you seen this button? One of the things about features of a treadle sewing machine is that it only does a straight stitch.
Yes.
And if you wanted to sew backwards, you have to spin your entire your entire project around, your entire piece of fabric, so that it's backwards to the way you were heading before, do a few stitches, and then spin it all around again. And, oh, wow, you mean I can just push a button and it'll go forwards and backwards? Yeah, well, that was just the tip of the iceberg for someone who was used to a treadle machine. Finding out something like the brand also told me if they'd bought some of the lower end brands from large department store, then that let me know, okay, so they might not have a good idea that sewing machines can be as expensive as $15,000. So I'm going to have to do some educating and getting people comfortable with the idea.
Yes.
And that's something really important for our listeners to think about is you're asking questions to determine how well educated your potential client is about the project or about your service and about your product.
Yeah.
And knowing the age was another factor with that education, because that told me, well, all right, it's a really old sewing machine, then they're not going to know the more recent developments. So yes. That's a good question for anyone, not necessarily the age of your sewing machine, but
what are you currently using?
What are you currently using? How long have you been thinking about getting this kind of service for your house or whatever? They might be thinking that you can do something with a technology that's no longer available.
Yeah, some machines there was no way to upgrade. Like you just...
Mm-hmm. So that helps you too in managing expectations. Mm-hmm. That's a good thing, is to ask questions and understand what they think they can get for the dollar amount that they have in their mind. Some people are open to being educated about dollar amounts, and other people have to be persuaded as to what is a fair thing. And you have to be prepared to have this as a friendly conversation. These kind of questions should come from a place of, okay, now I understand where you're coming from, what you're thinking about, as opposed to, oh, is that what you think? Good luck with that. Don't make me laugh. You're not getting that, chum.
Exactly.
You might, in your head, you might think that, but it better not be on your face or in your tone of voice.
Questions help you to determine, first of all, one of the things we talked about the last episode, and I think we're going to do a full episode on this, is, listening to find out if this person is, if you want them to be your client and customer. And part of the way of doing that is by asking questions of people that help determine, like you were talking about, what brand are they currently using? So a question could be, what did you find frustrating about that brand? What did you find frustrating about working with that specific company, right? Like, so there's things that you can ask that will help you to determine, do you want to work with this person? So we're not going to go into that too much because we're going to do a full episode on that.
Another question, it's a magical question, Kim.
Ooh, we like magical questions.
If you could change 3 things about the product, service that you have now, you could change 3 things about your sewing machine, what would they be? In my case, it was almost always threading the machine, winding a bobbin, and changing the stitches, or changing the feet. And depending on their answer, I would show them, well, it's really easy to thread because I just go whoop, up, down, and through the eye of the needle, or down, and use the built-in needle threader. I don't even have to see the eye of the needle, which after my 50th birthday, I can appreciate far more than I did when I was selling them in my sewing machines in my 30s. But
you can't see the hole, like it's right there.
It's like I want to smack past me in the head for that one.
Yes, I know. I'm not wearing them, but, I'm showing in the video here, I'm showing the bifocals, which I actually cannot wear while I'm working on my computer, which was one of the reasons why I bought them. But I cannot find the right sweet spot where I can see. So I do not wear them. But at least now I can sit on the couch and watch TV and play on my phone and read a book at the same time without having to put my glasses on and off.
Knowing the 3 things, it was, like I said, threading, bobbin winding. That was where you could pull out. If you have that question of what 3 things can you change? You go, look at we have here. Wow, that was easy. Look at how easy it is to wind a bobbin. You don't have to unthread the machine. What? Wow, I can sew faster and the most tedious part is eliminated? Mm-hmm. Even better. And now, do you want to see how easy it is to do a pattern stitch? Oh, yeah, I never use that on my other machine because I don't know how to change feet and do that. I'm like, well, push button number 1 and button number 7, and that's number 7, stitch 17. Oh, I can push buttons. I know how to work a telephone. And pull on, snap off, changing. The easiest features of your product can be miracle. They're like you're some kind of magician going, do you know what I love? I love that it is so easy to do that. And people will be like, I love that too. I like that. I like easy.
So I want to move on to number 3, because let's try and get through all 5 today. But that, what you shared was really great. And I love those, what 3 things. And actually it remind me something that we're going to talk about in number 5, which is the test close. So number 3 is provide value. When you share your knowledge freely with your potential client customer, it proves to them that you are the person that can help them. I've heard so many times, oh, don't give it all away, because if you give it all away, you got to make people pay for your knowledge. And I have found the exact opposite is true. Now, let me clarify, because it can be taken to the extreme. Mm-hmm. I don't give away my products and my services for free. That does not come free. You are paying for my products and my services. But my knowledge, I will share freely with you. I do 1-hour phone consultations with people who are interested in writing a book. and I will answer every question they ask me. And I will tell them how to write a book in less than an hour. And people are like, you tell people that? Yeah. Because first of all, 97% of people are not self-motivated enough, even if I did tell them to do it themselves. But secondly, they don't want to do it themselves.
Right. If anything, it gives them a better appreciation of, this was a lot more work than I ever anticipated.
Mm-hmm. So when people ask you questions or you're talking about the problems that they're facing, don't hold back. Like even as a coach, I'm not saying solve every problem they have on an introductory sales call. But as a coach, if you can solve one small problem they're having, which is usually only a symptom of the big problem that's hiding underneath, the center of the onion, right? Mm-hmm. If you can show them that you can help them solve one small problem, guess who they're going to come to solve the really big problems?
It's another way of showing that you are a credible authority. And definitely your technique for showing your book, for giving potential clients and customers your own book, establishes you as the authority. You give them a book. How much value is that, Kim?
Well, it depends whether we're talking about the cost of the paper and shipping or the words inside of it, right? And that's the thing too, right? Like that's one of the key things in the author to authority system is sharing your book, that signature book with them. I was talking to someone, was it yesterday or the day before? And I offered to ship her my book. And she looks at me and she goes, yeah, but isn't it expensive to ship from Canada to the United States? I said, well, first of all, I said, my rates aren't too bad. I said, I ship enough that I get decent rates. I said to her, but secondly, I said, think of it this way. Let's say, it even costs me $20, $25 between the cost of the shipping and the cost of getting the book printed, right? But if I get that book into your hands and you see the value that I provide and I share my knowledge freely with you, and in this case, would this person become a client? Probably not, but she has a massive community of entrepreneurs. So is it worth it for me to spend $25, to get my book into her hands so that she can see my knowledge, skills, talents, and ability and promote me out to her community? Oh, you better believe it.
And even I always think of what an ad in a newspaper, a newspaper, what's that? But a newspaper ad for something, let's say about the size of like 2 business cards stacked on top of each other. Mm-hmm. I think that was considered a 16th of a page. It was, when I first started, it was about $200 for an ad that size. $200, $250 for one shot.
Yeah.
And sure, that would go out to our community of perhaps at the time, maybe 25,000 people, probably not even that many. I'm including local area. Not
half of them, a third of them would be men.
Which isn't to say that my target, it was like a very scattershot approach to advertising. Mm-hmm. I wasn't, and it was just that one shot and gone, as opposed to reaching my targeted client. And you've just sent it for $25. You've sent it to someone who will broadcast it to a much larger base and has potential collaboration with you. And so it's like a stone in a pond creates so many more ripples than that single newspaper ad was like spitting in the ocean.
Yeah, exactly. So, don't be afraid to share your knowledge freely, because you will find that it creates relationship. It shows that you care. It positions you as that credible expert. So I think, if we keep going like this, Juanita, we can actually get through the other 2 today. So I want to focus in on the last 2, which is body language and your test close. Most people do not realize that most communication is done non-verbally. And people go, what do you mean by that? When you are talking to someone, you're not just listening to the words they say. You're listening to the inflection, the attitude, the emotion. You're looking at their body as they're speaking, and you're gauging and a lot of this is subconscious. It's not a conscious thing. It's a subconscious thing. You're looking at that person and you're gauging them by what you're seeing in their body. For example, let's say you walk up to someone, their face is very, just stern looking. I'm trying to describe it because I'm on the video and I'm trying to make like a really stern face, which I'm finding hard to do right now. And, their arms are crossed over their body and they're just kind of glaring at you.
Closed. Yeah.
Are you really going to feel comfortable walking up and talking to that person? Probably not.
Probably not. Although I do have a little trick I want to share with that. If a person came into my store and they had that kind of look, I'm like, well, you didn't come in here for buying a piano. You came in here for some reason. Oh, you came in here for me to sell you something. If you have a situation like that where the client is coming to see you, your self-talk is, and maybe we should have another podcast episode about self-talk, but I would sometimes tell myself is, you're here to buy a sewing machine. They're here to buy something from me.
Yes.
I bet I can make you smile. I had it as a little challenge to myself. And one of the things I would do, body language, is I would mimic their posture in some ways. I wouldn't be like frowning, crossed arms, but I would respect a greater distance between us because obviously they weren't ready to get too close to me. I would stand with, say, my feet shoulder width apart, and I would mirror their posture, but an open version of their posture.
Yeah.
So basically communicating that this is a safe place. I had it in my mind. I was the hostess welcoming you to my party. If you didn't want to be at the party, you'd go, right? I think that means a lot.
And you know what? I think let's put that in your notes. Let's do an episode on body language as well, because that's a huge topic in and of itself. And I want to get to the test close as well. So let's do a full episode on body language in the sales process, because I think that one's important as well. So Juanita is the planner person. So I leave that up to her to just make sure that gets marked down. So let's go to the last one for today, and that is a test close. So you've had this wonderful conversation with the person, you've talked about your products and services, and where do you go from here? Actually, that's a question that you can use as a test close. If you've had this wonderful conversation, you can say to the person, how do you want to proceed? That's a test close question. Now, sometimes the person's going to buy, like they are so excited over the moon, whatever, they've given you no objections. They're
like, shut up and take my money.
Yeah, just pretty well. Yeah. But then there's people that you're not sure about. I mean, there's other people, they are not ready to buy, right? So you don't even push it. But then there's those people in the middle and you're kind of like, I'm not sure like where they're sitting. So when you ask, how would they like to proceed from here? You're asking a very open-ended question that allows them to explain what they're thinking and they're feeling. And sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes they're ready to move forward, right? So you just start the process. Other times they're telling you the reasons why they feel that they are not ready, whether it be time, whether it be money, whether, they just don't feel prepared. Like one of the things that we see, even though I've told them that we're going to do everything for them, they're like, I just don't know what to write about. And to them, that's a humongous concern, and then at that point, then I can go back into the education of the process of writing a book with us. And I'm like, that's okay. You do not need to know exactly what you want to write about, but can you tell me this? Right. And if they can tell me certain things, then I'm like, okay, that's all I need for us to be able to get started. I can help you write a book. Right. So it's that test close. Now, Carol Boston, who's part of the Authority Gang, she has empowering questions. So let's just say that you've asked a few test questions. You're really sensing that the person wants to, but there's just kind of something holding them back. So you can actually ask them, and it's similar back in podcast number 1 of this. You talked about
the 3 things. So the question that Carol Boston teaches is, what is the one thing that is holding you back from getting started today? Mm-hmm. Now, this question is really great, but if someone's really negative or whatever, that's not a question you ask them, right? Because that just annoys them and it feels manipulation. But if you really sense that the person wants to move forward, but there's something holding them back, right? So you're not asking this question to manipulate, you're asking this question to clarify. And most times you'll be surprised what the person says. Juanita, we had a client, right? And this was the process. And so I'm kind of like, okay, what's the one thing holding you back? And he said to us, he says, I know it's going to be a lot, but I need 3 or 4 blog posts written. I tried not to laugh. I really had to keep such a straight face. But for him, that was something massive, right? Mm-hmm. That was the deal breaker.
And 3 or 4 blog posts for our listeners is what? The work of a single chapter, not even the work of a single chapter kind of thing. Like, oh, okay. Now, of course, you can't be dismissive or scoff like I just did. But that's the thing, is that was such a valuable piece of information. It was like, oh, is that all? Is what you probably will think inside when you're asking whether you're trying to find out if they have any objections with your test close. One of the test closes I would use, it sounds like this is the perfect machine for you. Shall I box it up and I can get Lee to ring it up at the till? And so I'm presuming at this point, because I'm presuming that the sale is done, people will definitely tell me if it's not. They're like, exactly. No, I wasn't ready to hand over my credit card just yet. Or yes, I guess so.
Yeah, exactly.
They'll tell you what's got them on the fence. Mm-hmm. But did like that. It sounds like you're ready. Because sometimes people need you to tell them you're ready.
Yeah.
And then they can go, oh, I guess I am.
Yeah. Like when that gentleman said that to me, right? I said to him, that is something that we could help you with. If I was able to include that in the price of the package as a special bonus for you, can we move forward? And his answer was yes. So, learn how to do those test closes. So we're going to actually just kind of start to shut this down here today because we don't want to go over our time limit. I think in closing, what I want to talk about is the fact that, having a system for your sales conversations. So the 5 things, the listening, the questions, the providing value, the body language, the test close, that should be all part of your system of selling. And when you have a system of selling, first, you're not going to get it as good as results as you want. When you first design it and you're first starting to do it, it's not going to be as great. But over time, you can refine that sales process so that, a fair amount of the people that, you are talking to are converting into clients and customers. On average, if I've got, I would say a warm lead. Cold leads are different, right? But if I've got a warm lead, usually 6 or 7 out of 10 will purchase the package if they're a warm lead. If they're a hot lead, then it's usually 9 out of 10. If they're a cold lead, maybe 3 or 4, right? So you got to look at the quality of the lead that's coming in as well. So my friend, we're going to shut this down today. This has been Kim Thompson Pinder and Juanita Wootton Radko on the Author to Authority podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you on the very next episode. Bye now.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Author to Authority podcast. The extraordinary word ninja, Kim Thompson Pinder, has helped over 200 entrepreneurs, professionals, speakers, and coaches write and publish their books that have become incredible marketing tools for their business. And many of those have gone on to become Amazon best-selling authors and have used their books to land high-level clients and get on big stages. We hope you've enjoyed the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review. And we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hit the website at www.authortoauthoritypodcast.com. See you next time.